G'day everybody, where's Wally here? Well, you guys might be wondering why I've slowed down a little bit these last few weeks. I have a shiny new telescope to play with. So, I'm sorry flatties for not giving you enough attention, but more, I'm sorry for those of you who like to point and laugh. But the flatties won't be laughing, however, as this telescope was paid for by Wolfie with the money that he had offered as a cash prize for the fully documented worked example of celestial navigation. However, no flat earther wanted the 4,000 cash prize, even though they claimed it only worked on a flat earth.
So after more than a month, it seems that no flat earther has the courage to try my celestial navigation challenge and win themselves the $4,000 prize money. On the other hand, Wally has been doing some great observations and has proven that the horizontals in Sydney and Dubbo are not parallel. So who better to take the prize money? Congratulations, little buddy. I know you're going to use this equipment wisely, and we expect to see great things from your new telescope. We're all rooting for you.
Yeah, thanks so very much, Wolfie. Now, Brian's Logic, the most correctly named channel, I mean, his logic is his alone, no one else wants it. So Brian had just recently put up a video trying desperately to debunk the classic epic bulk carrier and Conti Leon container ship. Seems Brian only had a single image, however, but this was a video shot off Wollongong using a P900 by MC the MC1 a few years ago. Ruif did all the legwork and he found the exact positions of the both ships. A link to his video is in the description as always. Let's listen to Brian doing his research/debunk. Now, I usually try to slice and dice a debunkable video in order, but Brian, he's kind of all over the place, like a dog's dinner. So I'll just pick out the main points as I see fit. Let's have a listen.
Well, how are you doing? Okay, let's make this bigger. Okay, this video is going to be a quick video on why this image completely debunks the globe Earth, the whole globe Earth model. Because this image came out years ago and it was claimed to be proof of a globe, but actually debunks the globe. And the reason is because it shows horizontal, linear, uniform disappearance in the z-axis, something that's impossible on a globe Earth. Now, this was shown years ago to just be tsunami wave showing. I think this photograph is taken off of the coast of, I think it's Australia or Hawaii, somewhere like that, where they get this effect. But either way, wherever it's taken, this effect tends to happen there. And it's just due to a steep drop-off in the topography underneath the water.
Ooh, word salad much? No, actually, I found Brian's own definition of his word salad, and it stated that the boat is sailing away from you. Brian, the Conti Leon, is sailing across the frame at 90 degrees to the direction that you require in your own word salad thing. I'm calling that one busted, or an own gold. Beaten by your very own definition, Brian. Well done, mate.
But all that's immaterial. The point is that these two ships are maybe half a mile apart. Maybe a mile. Let's just say half a mile, right? It doesn't really matter. Let's just say they're half a mile apart, right?
So, half a mile? Any justification for that, Brian? Or was that just a number you picked as it's easy to debunk? Kind of like a straw man.
But all that's immaterial. For this ship to be missing, let's just say this ship has, let's say this container here is, let's call it, if that container is, let's say, 100 feet off of the water below, or let's just say 60 feet, right? And let's say there's half of the ship missing, right? Obscured, right? So there's an obstruction of, let's say, 30 feet of the ship, right?
So 50 feet hidden. Okay, let's go with that.
But all that's immaterial. And there's only half a mile of, let's say, distance or a mile distance between the two. Then how would this be possible on the globe Earth model? It wouldn't be. It would be completely impossible. As at half a mile, the maximum amount of obstruction could be 2 inches. At a mile, the maximum amount of obstruction is 8 inches, right, on a globe model. But
as the camera is around 9 meters, it's not just quite so easy as 8 inches per mile squared. So if we go to Walter Bislin and try a few distances and, oops, too far, so around 15 or 16 miles from the camera. So remember, Brian, you said 40 feet of hidden.
But all that's immaterial.
Now, what Ruhif did years ago was this.
Hey. All right, so I actually had a chat with Flat Earth New Zealand yesterday, and he asked for footage of boats going over a curve. So I pointed him to MC1's video called Nikon P900 Debunks Flat Earth Again. He had a look at that footage and seemed to suggest that it showed too much curve, which I'm not sure that he meant to say. So I made an offer to see if he has any math ability whatsoever to calculate how much hidden there should be, how much there appears to be, and also address this issue of the boat tilting over with the curvature of the Earth. And I offered him $500 just to do the math correctly, but he seemed to decline that offer. Because he pointed me to my Perspectives video on that observation, which basically claims that the footage is fake. And in my book, once you claim it's fake, you've pretty much lost the argument. Anyway, here is a screenshot from that footage. As you can see, it's very, very clear. No distortion, no visible compression, no inferior mirage, no superior mirage. Very, very clear footage. Right. His observer location is also well known. He was on this little platform here. We can also get a very accurate observer height because there is a survey mark literally 20 meters away, and it's 7.25 meters elevation above sea level. So with a tripod, we'll give him roughly 9 meters of elevation. So here is the observer location. I actually subscribed to fleetmon.com for a month simply to get these coordinates for the boat in the foreground and the background boat, the Conti Leon in the background. So this location was actually at 7 p.m. Heading north, and the footage that the MC1 took was at 7:02. So we can work out fairly accurately where it was at 7:02, 2 minutes later, and we can then work out the distance to the boat and the observer height in meters and get a refracted hidden of basically 13 meters. Right, so how much of the boat is hidden? Well, I've found a picture of the Conti Leon from a similar aspect, and I'll fade that in now just so you can see what the boat looks like and how much it had hidden. There we go, do this one more time. So you can see it is cut off by the horizon roughly there. So let's look at that image. So here is where the horizon cut off the boat in the footage. We know that a standard shipping container height is 2.6 meters. So we can derive a vertical scale on this image. And we're looking at 7 shipping containers here, and they're 2.6 meters high, and that is 18.2 meters. And on my image that I'm using, that is 147 pixels. So remember the point at which the horizon cut off the boat was right here. And from that point down to the waterline was 111 pixels. So we can use that scale to work out how much of that was hidden, give or take, given the draft of the boat. And that works out to be 13.7 meters against a predicted hidden from Metabunk of 12.9 meters. So that matches incredibly well. But what about Flat Earth New Zealand's question about why is the boat not leaning with the curve? The short answer is you're an idiot. The longer answer is to actually calculate how much tilt there should be on that boat. So on a globe with a radius of 6,371 kilometers, the circumference is calculated by 2 times pi times the radius, which is 40,030 kilometers. The Conti Leon was 25.4 kilometers away, and that is only a tiny, tiny fraction of the circle. So the amount that the boat is tilted away from you is only 0.23 degrees. So I don't think anyone can tell the difference between something perfectly upright and something tilted away from you at 0.23 degrees. So I reiterate my answer, because you are an idiot.
But all that's immaterial.
Sorry, Brian, those boats are not a mile apart. So we're saying the Epic was at 8 kilometres, and that's well before the horizon, and the Conti Leon was at 26 kilometres, and that was well past the horizon. And that's 3 times further away, not half a mile. How could you get this so wrong, Brian? Granted, you are rubbish at research and you didn't find any of the tracking data like Ruhif did, but you should have been able to find Wolfie's video, or Ruhif's, or Sam Sahil's, or the original by MC the MC1. But even if you didn't find that, Brian, there is one big clue right in this frame staring you in the face that tells you the far ship is a long way further back. Do you see what it is? It's the size of the lifeboats. It was staring you in the face all along, Brian, and you missed it. The lifeboats on each vessel are probably about the same size, but because the Conti Leon was in fact 3 times further away, the lifeboat on that vessel is about, you guessed it, 1/3 the apparent size.
But all that's immaterial.
So, Brian, you think 40 feet of hidden inside half a mile? Well, that's like 1 degree pitch or slope of the water. Well, for people who chant that the water always finds its level, you are certainly happy to have the water off level by 1 degree. I'm sure that's a violation of a natural law right there, Brian.
But all that's immaterial. So it can't be bigger, it can't be smaller. It has to have an average average calculated radius of 3959 miles. That's what it has to have. And this is obviously a debunk of that radius. Because look at the difference. You're seeing the bottom of the ship over here, but you're seeing the bottom of this ship or whatever it is over here would be down here. So you can't, with that amount of small distance, there is no way on a globe Earth that that ship in the distance can be that much obscured while this other ship is up here. The only way that can happen is over a flat plane. There is no other way. Through, obviously, tsunami wave shoaling, as we already know.
Your excuse for this is shoaling, or tsunami shoaling. Well, there was no tsunami that day, so forget that word that you used to make it sound impressively bad. This is open ocean, Brian, not the shore. Now, let's address this shoaling nonsense, shall we? The Epic was in just over 40 metres of water, and the Conti Leon was in over 100 metres of water depth. If you look up shoaling, Brian, it's a shallow water effect. Do you seriously think that 40 to 100 metre of water is shallow enough for that, Brian?
But all that's immaterial astronomy. Even though astronomy uses elevation angles, which is impossible on a curved surface. But either way, the globe Earth mathematics has to match the sky. But the point is that this image is impossible on a globe Earth. For that ship, as I said, to be going over a curve and to be missing that much of its hull, it would have to be at that much of an angle. That's the angle it would have to be at.
Tilt. Let's have a look at the celestial navigation. Celestial navigation states that if a star is directly over the camera, that is, that the camera is at the GP of the navigational star, then a sextant sighting from the deck of the Conti Leon would see that same star not at 90 degree elevation like at the GP, but at an angle that is less. Well, how much less? I'm glad you asked. Let's work it out. If the Conti Leon is 26 kilometres or 14.04 nautical miles away, that's 14.04 arc minutes, which is 0.234 of a degree. And that is the same tilt as calculated by Walter Bisland's Earth Curve calculator. Interesting, hey?
But all that's immaterial. There is no measured radius value for the globe Earth. It's only a calculation, and that calculation is all based on the sky. You know, it has to be a particular size. And so because the globe Earth has to be a particular size and it has to have a particular calculation, that means that this photograph completely debunks it. It's over. Thank you.
So this is how celestial navigation works, Brian. Imagine that you're on the proverbial desert island, way out in the middle of the ocean, nothing but water all around. Now imagine there is a navigational star right overhead at 90-degree elevation. Now, if Alice sailed the boat 60 nautical miles away and took a sighting of the same star at the same time, it would be at 89 degrees elevation. We all know this. And if Bob sailed a boat 111 kilometres away in the opposite direction and took a sighting of the same navigational star at the same time, the elevation would also be 89 degrees. Alice and Bob are both on the same circle of equal altitude and the same distance from Brian's Island. Oh, and both boats are tilting away at 1 degree. They have to be, as their zeniths are 1 degree from the line of sight to the star. There is nothing you can argue about this, Brian. It is the way.
But all that's immaterial.
Now that you know that tilt is away from the camera, Brian, why you go on about tilting across the horizon just makes my head spin.
For that ship, as I said, to be going over a curve and to be missing that much of its hull, it would have to be at that much of an angle.
You recognise that the horizon is level, so why would the Cantillon be at any other angle than parallel to that?
But all that's immaterial.
Now, Brian in comments bangs on about geometric horizon, as if that's some sort of get-out-of-jail-free card. Brian thinks that it is a gotcha with this geometric horizon, but what does that actually mean? It means the theoretical value where the horizon would be if we didn't have any refraction. Well, I looked hard and I can't see no light bending refraction to speak of. So Brian, what if this is so close to perfect conditions as to be a geometric horizon? Or, probably better, a low refraction horizon. How about we call it that? First, let's work out just how much of the Cantillon is hidden. No guessing here, Brian. Firstly, in the video, when the Cantillon reappears behind the bow of the Epic, you can see just a little bit of the bow railing. No refraction, no mirroring there. And that also allows us to measure the amount of hidden. Now here is an image of the side of the ship. And I love this one because there are standard size shipping containers on it. So just cut and paste a few of those to make a ruler and place that beside the bow, and you can all see 7 shipping containers high is what the bow is. So that's around 60 to 66 feet railing to waterline. That is the amount that it's hidden at this point when it reappears behind the Epic. What does Walter Bislin's Earth Curve calculator say the hidden is if there's no refraction? 60 feet. So not only is that a match for the hidden, but it's a match for the amount of hidden with 0 refraction as well. So that means I can confidently say, Brian, this is a geometric horizon you're seeing, a low refraction horizon.
But all that's immaterial.
So get out of horizon-free jail card revoked, Brian. So in summary, all points made by Brian are gone. Now, I'm going to be watching this real close to see if Nathan, or Huey, or 10th Man, or Mitchell, or Adam, or any of the Fed heads do peer review of what Brian has said on this one. Surely these guys won't give Brian a free pass for this. He has, in fact, just proved the globe all over again. Thanks, Brian. And one final question, Brian. If the camera was at 9 meters, and the deck of the Epic is around 9 meters, and the deck of the Cantillon is around 9 meters, why are these 3 things not in a line? Interesting. Thanks, guys.
But all that's immaterial.